The question came during what the humans called happy hour at the Nexus Station cantina. Commander Vex 9, a proud Korthani warrior with scales that could deflect plasma bolts, had been nursing his third synthahol when he noticed her. Captain Maya Torres sat at the far end of the bar, completely unarmored. Not even a basic energy shield generator. Just some thin fabric they called clothing, and that insufferable human confidence that seemed to radiate from every pore. "Excuse me," Vex 9 called out, his translator crackling slightly. "Human female. I must ask you something." Maya turned, one eyebrow raised in that uniquely human expression of mild annoyance mixed with curiosity. "Yeah? What's up, big guy?" "Your species," Vex 9 gestured with one of his forearms. "You fight wars across the galaxy. You face the hegemony. You battle void creatures that make my people wake up screaming. Yet you wear no armor, no protective plating, no energy shields. Why?" The entire cantina went quiet. Even the Zephyrian bartender with his 8 tentacles stopped mixing drinks. This was, after all, the question that had puzzled every species in the Galactic Council for the past 50 years since humanity had joined. Maya's response was simple. She laughed, not a polite chuckle or a nervous giggle. A full-throated, belly-deep laugh that echoed off the metal walls and made several nearby aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Oh, honey," she said, still chuckling as she rolled up her sleeves. "You really want to know?" Vex 9 nodded eagerly. Around the cantina, conversations had completely stopped. A group of stellar marines leaned forward. Even the usually stoic granite-born delegation had turned their rock-like heads to listen. "All right then," Maya stood up, her movements casual and fluid. "Let me tell you about human armor, friend." She walked closer to Vex 9, and he couldn't help but notice how she moved. No clunking of metal plates, no whirring of servo motors, no energy field distortions, just smooth, predatory grace. "See, you're thinking about this all wrong," Maya continued, now standing directly in front of the towering Korthani warrior. "You look at us and think we're vulnerable because we don't have scales like you, or chitin like the hive-born, or that fancy energy plating the Council Guard uses." Vex 9 nodded. This was exactly what confused him. "But here's the thing," Maya's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the room. "We don't need external armor because we are the armor." "I don't understand," Vex 9 admitted. Maya grinned, and something in that expression made the Korthani warrior take an involuntary step backward. "Let me show you something. Hit me." "What?" "You heard me. Take your best shot. Right here," she tapped her chest with one finger. "Don't worry about hurting me. I'll be fine." Vex 9 looked around the cantina nervously. "I cannot strike an unarmored being. It would be dishonorable." "Trust me," Maya's grin widened. "You won't hurt me. Besides, you wanted to know about human armor, right? This is lesson 1. The Korthani warrior hesitated. His people prided themselves on their physical strength. A single punch from him could crack reinforced battle plating. But this human female stood there, relaxed and confident, wearing nothing but thin fabric. "Very well," he said finally, "but I will use minimal force." "Oh no, no, no," Maya shook her head. "That defeats the purpose. I want you to hit me like you mean it. Like your life depends on it. Like I just insulted your mother and burned down your favorite restaurant." Vex 9's scales darkened with uncertainty, but he drew back his primary arm. Around the cantina, beings held their breath. Some of the more squeamish aliens looked away. The punch came fast and hard, powered by 4 centuries of Korthani military training and genetically enhanced muscle density. It should have shattered ribs, collapsed lungs, and sent Maya flying across the room. Instead, something impossible happened. Maya didn't dodge. She didn't block. She didn't activate any hidden shield generator. She absorbed the impact. Her body moved with the punch, rolling backward just enough to dissipate the force. Her feet shifted slightly, her torso twisted, her shoulders dropped. The devastating blow that should have killed her became nothing more than a firm push. And then she was back in position, completely unharmed, still grinning. What in the seven hells? Vex 9 stared at his fist, then at Maya, then back at his fist. Lesson 1, Maya announced to the stunned Cantina. Human armor isn't something we wear. It's something we are. Our bones are composite materials that can flex without breaking. Our muscles are shock absorbers. Our joints are universal adapters. Our entire skeletal and muscular system is designed to take impacts that would liquefy most other species. She rolled her shoulders casually, but that's just the beginning. Dr. Kepler Voss, the station's chief medical officer and a healer caste Altarian, spoke up from his corner booth. Impossible. I've examined human physiology. Your bone density is remarkable, yes, but not supernatural. Your muscle fibers are efficient, but not beyond biological norms. What you just did should be impossible. Maya turned to face the doctor, her expression shifting to something that made several patrons reach for their weapons without quite knowing why. "Oh, Doc," she said softly, "you've been looking at the wrong things." She walked over to his table, and every step seemed calculated to project a very specific message. The predator approaching prey. "You've scanned our bones, our muscles, our organs. Very thorough. Very scientific. But did you scan our minds?" Dr. Voss's healing tendrils twitched nervously. Mental activity is difficult to quantify with standard medical equipment. "Right," Maya nodded. "Because you're still thinking like a civilized being. You're thinking about medicine and science and proper procedures. But see, that's not how humans work." She leaned down, bringing her face level with the doctor's. "We don't think our way out of problems, Doc. We feel our way through them." "I don't understand." "When Vex 9 hit me just now, I didn't calculate angles of impact or force distribution ratios. I didn't run through defensive algorithms or access combat databases. You want to know what I did?" Dr. Voss nodded, though his tendrils were now completely retracted in a defensive posture. "I got angry." The simple statement hung in the air like a threat. Not thinking angry, not planning angry. Pure, raw, biological angry. The kind of angry that activates every defensive system evolution spent millions of years building into us. The kind of angry that floods our bloodstream with enough natural chemicals to make a berserker-class combat stim look like candy. Maya straightened up, but her eyes never left the doctor's face. See, most species evolve to run from predators, or hide from predators, or work together to scare off predators. Humans. We evolved to be the predators. And when something threatens a predator, well... She rolled her shoulders again, and this time several beings noticed the way her muscles moved under her skin. Not like mechanisms or hydraulics, like coiled springs under pressure. "We don't get scared, Doc. We get dangerous." Captain Rex Parker, a human cargo hauler sitting near the back, chuckled and raised his drink. "Tell them about the time you took on those hegemony shock troopers on Kepler 7, Maya." Maya's grin returned, but it wasn't pleasant. "Oh, that's a good one. 3 full squads of hegemony shock troopers. Best armor in the galaxy. Energy shields that could stop a direct hit from a battleship main gun. Weapons that could level city blocks." She turned back to address the entire cantina. "They cornered me and my crew in a cargo bay. No weapons, no armor, no backup. Just me, 5 other humans, and a really bad day." "What happened?" Vex 9 asked, though from his tone he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "Well," Maya said, her voice taking on the cadence of someone telling a favorite story. "The hegemony commander, big guy, even bigger than our friend Vex here, starts making demands. Surrender this, surrender that, prepare to be processed for interrogation. Very official, very proper." She paused to take a sip of her drink. "So I asked him a question. I said, 'Hey, Commander Big and Scary, quick question for you. Do you know what happens when you corner a human?' And Dr. Voss found himself asking despite his better judgment. He didn't know. So I told him. Maya's eyes went distant, remembering. I said, when you corner most species, they surrender. When you corner a human, you find out why we're the only species in the galaxy that hunted our predators to extinction. The cantina was completely silent now. Even the background hum of the station's life support systems seemed muted. The commander laughed. His troops laughed. Big joke, right? Soft little humans making threats. Maya's expression shifted again, and this time there was nothing human about it at all. It was something much older, much more primal. So I showed them. She stood up from the bar, and her posture changed completely. Gone was the casual, friendly human female. In her place stood something that made every instinct in the room scream danger. First rule of human combat doctrine, she said, her voice now carrying an edge that could cut steel. We don't fight fair, we don't fight honorably. We don't fight by the rules, we fight to win, and we fight to make sure the other guy never fights again. Vex 9 felt his scales ripple in involuntary fear response. What did you do? I smiled at their commander, just like I'm smiling at you now. And then I asked him if he'd ever heard of something called going feral. Dr. Voss's medical training kicked in. Feral state? That's a myth. A psychological impossibility. Sentient beings cannot simply revert to. Doc, Maya interrupted gently. Want to bet your life on that? The Altarian doctor's tendrils went completely still. See, here's what you civilized species don't understand about humans, Maya continued, beginning to pace around the cantina like a caged predator. We're not really civilized. We just pretend to be because it makes interacting with other species easier. But underneath all the politeness and diplomacy and proper behavior, we're still the same creatures that once hunted mammoth with pointy sticks. She stopped directly in front of a table full of stellar marines, who, despite being some of the toughest warriors in the galaxy, shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. And when you threaten us, really threaten us, all that civilization just goes away. Rex Parker raised his drink again. Tell them about the 30-second mark, Maya. Maya's grin became absolutely predatory. Ah, yes, the 30-second mark. That's when the hegemony commander realized he'd made a mistake. What happened at 30 seconds? Vex 9 asked. That's when I killed the first one. The simple statement hit the cantina like a physical blow. Several beings actually flinched. No weapons, Maya held up her empty hands. No tools, no gadgets, just these. She flexed her fingers, and for the first time the assembled aliens noticed how the joints moved, how the tendons stood out, how the bones seemed designed for gripping and tearing. Humans have what we call natural weapons, she continued. Fists that can shatter bone, elbows that can cave in armor, knees that can rupture organs, teeth that can tear through combat suits, and most importantly, she tapped her temple, brains that can figure out exactly where to apply those weapons for maximum effect. Dr. Voss found his voice again. But the armor. Hegemony shock trooper armor is rated against small arms fire, energy weapons, explosive impacts. Sure, Maya nodded agreeably. It's great armor. Really impressive. One problem, though. What? It's designed to stop attacks from outside, not from inside. The silence stretched for long, uncomfortable seconds. You see, Maya continued, when you grab a hegemony shock trooper by the helmet and twist his head around 180 degrees, the armor doesn't really matter anymore. The soft, squishy parts inside don't handle sudden directional changes very well. She demonstrated the motion casually, her hands moving in a sharp, efficient twist that made everyone in the cantina's neck hurt in sympathy. The other 17 troopers realized they had a problem at that point. Big, heavily armed, highly trained problem. Unfortunately for them, they made another mistake. What mistake? Vex 9 whispered. They tried to run. Maya's laugh this time was different, lower, darker, the kind of sound predators make when they've scented prey. See, running triggers something in humans. something we inherited from our ancestors who used to chase down antelope across open savannas, something we call the pursuit response. She began pacing again, her movements now unmistakably predatory. When something runs from us, we don't think anymore. We don't plan. We don't strategize. We just hunt. The cantina's atmospheric processes seemed to be working overtime, but somehow the air still felt thick and oppressive. I caught the second one at the cargo bay door. Hegemony shock troopers are fast, I'll give them that. But humans are endurance hunters. We don't sprint, we pursuit. We don't dash, we persist. We keep coming and we keep coming and we keep coming until our prey collapses from exhaustion. She stopped in front of Vex 9 again. This one collapsed after about 50 meters. The adrenaline surge from seeing his buddy die had worn off, and the reality of his situation was setting in. Big, scary warrior reduced to a panicking animal. "What did you do to him?" Dr. Voss asked, though his medical curiosity was clearly warring with his survival instincts. "I introduced him to another human specialty," Maya said cheerfully. "Improvisation." She picked up a standard cantina chair, lightweight aluminum and polymer construction, and held it casually in one hand. Most species design specific tools for specific jobs. Humans, we turn whatever's handy into whatever we need. This chair becomes a club, a bottle becomes a blade, a maintenance tool becomes a weapon. A cargo container becomes a trap. With a casual flick of her wrist, she sent the chair spinning across the room where it struck the far wall with enough force to embed itself 6 inches into the reinforced metal. The 3rd through 7th troopers learned about human tool use the hard way. Rex Parker was grinning now. "Tell them about the cargo container." Oh, the cargo container was beautiful. Maya's eyes lit up with what could only be described as artistic appreciation. Standard shipping container, about 2 tons of empty metal. The remaining troopers thought they were being clever, using it for cover while they called for backup. She walked over to where the chair had embedded itself in the wall and casually pulled it free with one hand. So I dropped it on them. "You dropped a 2-ton cargo container?" Vex 9's voice cracked slightly. "Well, I didn't lift it myself," Maya said reasonably. "That would be silly. I just convinced the cargo bay's gravity manipulators to stop holding it up." She set the chair down gently. Humans are really good at figuring out how things work. Even alien things, even under pressure, comes from millions of years of having to adapt to new environments with whatever tools we could find or make. Dr. Voss's medical training was clearly struggling with what he was hearing. But the calculations alone, the technical knowledge required. "Doc, when something is trying to kill you, you'd be amazed how fast you can learn. Fear is a wonderful teacher, so is anger. And humans? We're really good at being both afraid and angry at the same time." She turned back to address the entire cantina that left about 8 troopers. They'd finally gotten their backup call through, so reinforcements were on the way. They had me and my crew pinned down behind some shipping crates. Very professional tactical situation. Her grin returned. "So I decided to teach them about human psychological warfare." "Psychological warfare?" Vex 9 repeated. "Oh yes, see, most species fight with their bodies or their technology. Humans fight with their minds. We get inside our enemy's head and make them defeat themselves." She began pacing again, but this time her movements were different, casual, almost lazy, like someone completely unconcerned about being in a combat situation. I started talking to them. Very conversational. Very friendly. I asked them about their families, their training, their equipment. I complimented their tactics. I told them how impressed I was with their professionalism. "That doesn't sound like warfare," Dr. Voss observed. "Doesn't it?" Maya's smile was razor sharp. "I was teaching them something very important. I was teaching them that I wasn't afraid of them. That being trapped and outnumbered and outgunned didn't concern me in the slightest. That this entire situation was, from my perspective, just another day at the office." She stopped pacing and faced the cantina. And then I started laughing. The silence was absolute. Not maniacal laughter, not crazy laughter. Just genuine amusement, like someone had told me a really good joke. I laughed like I was having the time of my life. Her expression shifted, and suddenly everyone in the cantina could imagine exactly what that laughter had sounded like. Cold, confident, completely unhinged from any normal emotional response to mortal danger. That's when they started making mistakes. Maya continued, her voice carrying that same terrifying casualness. The cantina remained frozen in absolute silence. Even the station's usual background noise seemed muted, as if the very air was holding its breath. You see, fear makes most species do predictable things, Maya explained, settling back against the bar with the relaxed posture of someone discussing the weather. They either freeze up completely, or they panic and do something stupid. The hegemony troopers? They chose option 2. Vex 9 found himself leaning forward despite every instinct screaming at him to back away. What kind of mistakes? Well, first they broke formation. Classic panic response. Instead of maintaining their tactical advantage, they started clustering together for emotional comfort. A big mistake when you're dealing with area effect weapons. She gestured casually toward the cargo bay's sprinkler system. Emergency fire suppression systems are wonderful things, especially when you rewrote them to spray industrial coolant instead of water. Dr. Voss's tendrils twitched. Industrial coolant? That would cause severe hypothermia, possibly death. Oh, it gets better, Maya's grin widened. See, hegemony armor has excellent climate control. Keeps the wearer comfortable in extreme temperatures. But it has one tiny design flaw. Which is, Rex Parker prompted, clearly enjoying the story even though he'd probably heard it before. The intake vents for the cooling system are on the back of the helmet. Really efficient design draws in ambient air and processes it through the suit's life support. Unless, of course, that ambient air happens to be super-chilled industrial coolant. She mimed the motion of something freezing. Turns out, when you flash freeze someone's respiratory system, all that fancy armor becomes a very expensive coffin. The assembled aliens exchanged horrified glances. Several species that relied on similar environmental suits were looking distinctly uncomfortable. That took care of 3 more troopers, Maya continued cheerfully. The remaining 5 finally figured out they needed a new strategy. So they decided to use their biggest advantage. Their weapons? Vex 9 guessed. Their backup, Maya corrected. Remember, reinforcements were on the way. A full hegemony assault squad, plus air support. All they had to do was hold their position for another 10 minutes. She pushed off from the bar and began walking around the cantina again, but this time her movement had a different quality. Less predatory stalking, more like someone conducting a lecture. Now, most reasonable beings would consider this a hopeless situation. 5 heavily armed enemies holding a defensible position with overwhelming reinforcements incoming. Standard military doctrine would suggest surrender or negotiation. But humans aren't reasonable, Dr. Voss said quietly. Now you're learning, Doc, Maya pointed at him approvingly. Humans don't do reasonable when we're backed into a corner. We do creative. She stopped in front of a table where 3 mineral-born traders were sitting, their crystalline forms refracting the cantina's lights into rainbow patterns. Tell me, friends, what do you know about human creativity? The eldest mineral-born, his voice like grinding stone, replied carefully. Human technological advancement is remarkable. Your species has developed innovations that took other civilizations centuries to achieve. That's the polite way of saying we're insane inventors, Maya translated. Most species develop technology gradually, building on established principles, following safe protocols. Humans. We look at a problem and think, hey, what if we try something completely ridiculous that has never been attempted before and probably shouldn't work? She leaned on their table, her casual proximity making all 3 traders shift nervously. Like, for instance, what if we turned a cargo bay's artificial gravity generators into a localized weapon? The silence that followed was deafening. You see, artificial gravity works by creating localized distortions in space-time. Very precise, very controlled, very safe. The safety protocols are built into every system to prevent catastrophic failure. Her smile became absolutely wicked. Unless you're a human with a basic understanding of physics, a really bad attitude, and about 30 seconds to improvise. Vex 9's scales were now showing distinct patterns of distress. What did you do? I turned the gravity generators into a localized black hole. Dr. Voss actually stood up, his medical training warring with physics. Impossible. The energy requirements alone would. Doc, you're thinking like a civilized being again, Maya interrupted gently. You're thinking about proper procedures and safety protocols. I was thinking about 5 heavily armed hostiles who needed to stop existing. She turned back to address the entire cantina. It wasn't a real black hole, of course. More like a gravity spike that lasted about 2 seconds. Just enough to compress everything in a 3-meter radius down to about the size of a marble. The implications of this statement hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The reinforcements arrived about 30 seconds later. Maya continued conversationally. Full assault squad, atmospheric fighters, heavy armor support. Very impressive. Very professional. Very prepared for a standard combat scenario. She walked back to her original position at the bar, her movement casual and unhurried. They were not prepared for what they found. Which was? Rex Parker asked, though from his expression he already knew the answer. A cargo bay that looked like someone had redecorated it with abstract art. And me, sitting in the middle of it all, still laughing. The cantina's air recycling system hummed loudly in the silence. The assault team commander was apparently a veteran, seen a lot of combat, dealt with hostile species across the galaxy. Very experienced, very competent. He took one look at the scene and asked me a question. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the room. He said, "What are you?" Her grin returned, but this time it was different. Not predatory, not wicked, just tired. Like someone who had answered this question too many times. So I told him the truth, she said simply. I said, "I'm human. And you just threatened my crew." Vex 9 found his voice again. What happened then? He surrendered, Maya shrugged. Smart commander, experienced enough to recognize when he was outclassed. His assault team stood down, withdrew to minimum safe distance and waited for diplomatic resolution. Dr. Voss looked confused, but surely with their superior numbers and firepower. "Doc, let me explain something about human psychology," Maya interrupted. "When we're protecting something we care about, we don't calculate odds. We don't consider consequences. We don't think about reasonable limits or acceptable losses." She rolled her shoulders again, and once more everyone noticed the way her muscles moved. "We become something that scares other predators." The eldest mineral-born trader spoke up, his voice uncertain. "But this cannot be normal human behavior. But surely your species has individuals who are more reasonable." Maya's laugh was genuinely amused this time. "Oh, absolutely. Most humans are peaceful, rational beings who prefer negotiation to violence. We have poets and artists and philosophers. We have people who spend their lives helping others, creating beautiful things, exploring the universe peacefully." Her expression softened slightly. "But here's the thing about humans. Every single one of us, no matter how peaceful or artistic or philosophical, carries the same basic operating system. It's the same survival protocols, the same capacity for..." She paused, searching for the right word. "Escalation," she said finally. "What do you mean?" Vex 9 asked. "I mean that the gentle human doctor who spends her days healing the sick can become a terrifying force of destruction if you threaten her patients. The peaceful human artist can become a master of psychological warfare if you attack his family. The philosophical human scholar can become a tactical genius if you endanger her community. Maya gestured around the cantina. Every human you've ever met, every human who seems soft or weak or harmless, is carrying the same evolutionary heritage I am. The same capacity for violence, the same survival instincts, the same ability to go from zero to absolutely lethal in about 3 seconds. She took a sip of her drink. We just choose not to most of the time. The implications of this statement settled over the cantina like a shroud. So when you ask why humans don't wear armor, Maya continued, you're asking the wrong question. The real question is, why would we need external protection when we are the thing other species need protection from? Dr. Voss was frantically making notes on his medical pad. But surely there are limits, physical constraints, biological boundaries. Are there? Maya asked mildly. Tell me, Doc, what do you know about human extremes? What we call adrenaline strength. The Altarian doctor consulted his notes. I've read reports. Humans accessing unusual physical capabilities under stress. Lifting impossibly heavy objects, moving at enhanced speeds, demonstrating pain tolerance beyond normal parameters. That's the sanitized version, Maya nodded. The reality is that humans routinely access physical capabilities that should be impossible. Mothers lifting vehicles off their children. Soldiers fighting effectively with injuries that should be incapacitating. Athletes performing at levels that break what other species consider biological law. She flexed her hand casually, and everyone noticed how the bones and tendons moved under the skin. Our bodies are designed with massive safety margins. Most of the time we're operating at about 30% of our actual capacity, but when we need to. She left the sentence hanging. The hegemony learned this the hard way, Rex Parker added. Their entire military doctrine was based on the assumption that all species have predictable limitations, quantifiable capabilities, reliable behavioral patterns. Maya nodded. They could predict exactly how any other species would respond to specific threats, how much damage they could take, how much force they could generate, how they would behave under pressure. Her grin returned. Then they met humans. And, Vex 9 prompted. And they discovered that human limitations are mostly suggestions, Maya said cheerfully. Guidelines that we follow when it's convenient, and ignore when it's not. She walked over to the cantina's reinforced window, which offered a view of the station's docking bay. In the distance, several ships were visible, including what looked like a human cargo vessel. See that ship out there? The one with the Earth markings? She pointed. That's the Persistence. Human cargo hauler, crew of 12. Last month it was attacked by pirate raiders. 3 ships, full crew complement, military-grade weapons. What happened? Dr. Voss asked, though his tone suggested he wasn't sure he wanted to know. The pirates disabled the Persistence's engines and boarded her, Maya said casually. Standard piracy operation. Demand cargo transfer, take valuable crew members for ransom, scuttle the ship. She pressed her hand against the window, and somehow the gesture seemed ominous. The pirates made one small miscalculation, which was, they assumed that 12 human cargo haulers would be easier to handle than 12 human soldiers. Maya's reflection in the window was smiling, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Turns out there's not much difference. A human who loads cargo containers for a living has the same basic survival programming as a human who fights wars for a living. The same programming, Vex 9 repeated slowly. The same willingness to do whatever it takes to protect their crew, Maya clarified. The same ability to turn any available resource into a weapon. The same capacity for creative problem solving under pressure. She turned away from the window to face the cantina again. The same ability to become something that nightmares have nightmares about. The silence stretched uncomfortably. The pirate ships were found 3 days later, Maya continued conversationally. All 3 vessels, drifting dead in space, no survivors, no distress signals, no indication of what had happened to them. Dr. Voss's tendrils were completely retracted now, and the Persistence. limped into port under emergency power. Maya shrugged. Crew intact, cargo secure, ready to file their delivery report and take on the next job. She walked back to the bar and finished her drink. When the station authorities asked them what happened to the pirates, the captain just said they'd handled it. Very matter of fact, very professional. But how? Vex 9 asked desperately. 12 cargo workers against 3 full pirate crews. Maya set down her empty glass and looked directly at him. You're still thinking about this wrong, Vex. You're still thinking about humans as individuals. But we're not individuals when we're threatened. She gestured to Rex Parker, who raised his drink in acknowledgement. We're a pack species. When you threaten one of us, you threaten all of us. When you attack our crew, our family, our community, you're not fighting 12 separate humans. Her voice dropped to that dangerous whisper again. You're fighting one human organism with 12 bodies, 12 sets of hands, 12 brains all working toward one single, unified goal. Which is? Dr. Voss whispered, making sure you never threaten us again. Maya rolled up her sleeves again, and this time everyone noticed the small scars on her arms. Not random marks, but deliberate patterns, tactical modifications. So when you ask why humans don't need armor, she said, addressing the entire cantina one final time, remember this, armor is for species that might lose a fight. Armor is for beings who need protection from their enemies. She smiled, and every sentient being in the room felt their survival instincts screaming warnings. Humans don't need armor because we don't plan to lose. We don't need protection because we are the thing our enemies need protection from. And we don't wear defensive gear because the best defense, she paused, letting the silence build, is making sure your enemies are too dead to attack you. With that, Maya Torres walked calmly out of the cantina, leaving behind a room full of aliens who suddenly understood why humanity's application to join the Galactic Council had been approved so quickly, and why no one had ever voted against them since. In the silence that followed her departure, Vex 9 turned to Rex Parker. Is she typical for your species? Rex Parker's grin was every bit as unsettling as Maya's had been. Oh no, friend. Maya's one of the gentle ones. The Corthani warrior's scales went completely pale. She used to be a kindergarten teacher.